Welcome everyone to the Proven Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Church. I'm a music producer from Northeast Ohio. I began this weekly interview series to give you different perspectives from artists, producers, engineers, and other individuals in the music industry. In each episode, we touch on not only what has helped the person succeed, but we also touch on what has shaped them into the person that they are today. I hope you're able to gain some real proven knowledge from the show, and that it helps elevate you on your own journey to success as well. Let's get into it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 239 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today I welcomed a folk artist. His name is Daniel Keiser. Daniel was presented to me through Dom, who has connected me with a bunch of different artists over the last few months. So shout out to Dom once again. But Daniel joined the show today to discuss his latest album, Miles, that he made with his band that he recently formed. He talked about the process of recording that album, songwriting, teaming up with a fellow poet to create the songs, doing some different tribute songs on the album. They're also working on a second album that's slated out within the next few months. He talked about the importance of live performing, what it means to him to be able to connect with the audience, especially on a more intimate and personal level in smaller venues. He's also an author, published author. He has a few books. He has one book currently out and a few books kind of ready to go that he's lining up currently. I really just loved the way he spoke on those books. And you could tell he's very passionate about his storytelling. And not only that, just the parallels between the way he talks about his songs and the way he talks about his writing for his books. He channels a lot of real life experiences, both personal and just overall, into his work, which I think is, the mark of a great artist. And he's a very multifaceted, great artist, I can tell. And I'm excited to see what he does moving forward with all these different endeavors that he has. So shout out to Dom once again for connecting us, and thanks to Daniel for stopping by. Without further ado, let's get into this one. All right, so welcome everyone to episode 239 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today we have a folk artist, actually. He's probably the first folk artist I've ever had on the show. Author, educator, does a lot of cool things from what I can tell from the research I've done. Daniel Keiser's here. How you doing, Daniel?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And like I said, thanks to Dom for, getting us connected, which is super cool. And usually to start off every episode, we have the guest give some background on, how you got into music, how long have you been doing it, just some basic info for those that might not know you and what you do.
Well, my parents sent me for guitar lessons since I was 9 years old, and I played classical guitar for a long time. I studied, I played all through my first teacher. My second teacher was actually a bluegrass teacher, so I played fingerstyle guitar. I did the whole rock band thing when I was a teenager. And then in my early 20s, I studied at the Ocean County Conservatory of Music for 2 years, just strictly classical guitar. And then I branched out. I always loved folk music. I love the lyrics, the poetry of it, the storytelling. And so I just continued to do that. Meanwhile, I had gotten married and we had 3 children. We had 3 daughters in 2 years because we had twins. And so I went to school to work as a school teacher, a high school math teacher, actually. Mm-hmm. And I taught for many, many years, and then I jumped over to the college level. I got my master's degree in mathematics. My dad said to me, the thing that you're really good at is mathematics, and music isn't going to pay the bills. So I just kept getting degrees in mathematics, and I taught at the college level. But I always played gigs on weekends, and I played in my church for many years. And so I started this band. I pulled the best musicians that I could find. I have a fantastic drummer who has many, many years experience and still plays in the Grateful Dead tribute band. I have a piano player who was actually my 6th grade teacher. We connected again later in life, and he's really the best piano player I've ever met or I've ever seen. Yeah, and he could really do anything.
Yeah.
And then to round out that band, I got this woman who plays violin, mandolin, and electric guitar. And she is truly the best musician I've ever met in my life. And she can do so many different things. So the four of us began to play out different venues and decided to write an album. I've written music before, but not with this band.
Mm-hmm.
So we wrote these 12 songs. We put out this album. We're in the process of putting out a second album, which will be out in March of 2025. And we also have a Christmas album out where Susan Salmon and I, the violin player, it's an all-instrumental Christmas album. It's called Joy to a Silent Night, which you can find on Spotify and Pandora and Apple and Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're rolling along, and we ended up getting a promoter, and we're getting some really cool performance gigs. We actually play at wineries and small festivals just to pay the bills and to keep the music thing going, because studio time is really expensive, and we use that money to just put right back into our music.
Yeah.
So, things are happening. It's really cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a lot, and the recap just alone, that got me totally up to speed. You know what I mean? So it's great to hear that you have that much stuff going on, and like you said, to have those full circle moments, like with your teacher that you just described, that's incredible. Yeah. So yeah,
that was really cool.
For sure.
Believe it or not, I had met him years later, and he looks at me and he says, "Danny Keiser," he goes, and I looked and I said, "Mr. Pasqua," and I said, "How did you recognize me? Like, I don't look anything like I looked when I was in 6th grade."
Yeah.
And he says, "You still have that same face, even though I have a beard now and a bald, shaved head." He recognized me. It's really unbelievable.
That's how you know it was meant to be, though. You know what I mean? Kind of reconnect. So yeah, that's awesome to hear. Cool. And speaking about the album that you dropped earlier this year, it's called Miles, and like you said, 12 tracks. So give us kind of like a little bit of insight on maybe the creation of the album, like recording the songs and doing all that sort of thing. Like, how was that experience from your perspective? How'd it go?
Right. What happened was I started writing. There's 9 originals and there's 3 covers on the album. And I started collaborating with a guy named Kirk Jarvis, who also does all our videos. And he was writing poetry, and I looked up his site and I started to read some of his poems. I'm like, wow, this is really good stuff, and asked him if he'd wanted to collaborate on songwriting. And he said he'd never really written a song before. It was strictly poetry. So I would read through some of his stuff, and one of the first songs that I saw was a song called a poem called "Everything's Aligned," which is the 8th song on the CD. And I put a melody to it, and then him and I worked on it and changed some of the words and added some things to it, and we came out that song and said, let's try it again. And he gave me 2 other songs, one called Man, She's Got the Blues, and another one called Miles, which is the title track. And those 2 songs, I came up with melodies like immediately for those lyrics, and called the other musicians in, and we created what I think is something really cool. And then we added some, the album has like, it's a storytelling album. It's very poetic at the same time. There's a political song on there called "Give It to Me Straight," which is a great video that we have out. We went to Washington, D.C. Just after January 6th riot thing that went on. And we recorded right there in front of the Capitol. And then we have some covers on there. We covered an old folk song called "Wayfaring Stranger." And other people have done it as well, but I wanted to do it in our own style. And actually the band thought I was kind of crazy for choosing that song, but it turned out to be the first track on the album because it came out so well. Great video we have that goes with that, the Wayfaring Stranger song. And believe it or not, it's got so far 26,000 streams on Spotify. and it's doing really well, like in just really short period of time from April until now. I mean, I think that's pretty good. It's not like, Taylor Swift numbers, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We also cover a Bob Dylan song on there, All on the Watchtower, and then an old song written back in 1934 called Summertime. And we took it and we did it in a very unique style that's a little bit rockier than its original version, obviously.
Yeah.
But, so that's how the album came together.
Yeah. Sounds like it covers a lot of different like sides too, which is really cool. And I'm definitely gonna have to check out the visuals that you guys did for it as well.
Yeah.
Because it definitely sounds intriguing. And congrats on it. And I think that being able to work with like you said, a poet, I think that's pretty cool because there's so many parallels already between like songwriting and poetry and how they kind of coincide. To kind of be able to like combine both the worlds is really cool. To be able to do that. So. That's awesome. And again,
even the last song I wrote for this new album that's coming up, it's called The River's Coming Round.
Yeah.
And we had gotten flooded about a year ago. We live on a lake, and this lake is between a river and another lake. And I thought about people who got flooded really even worse than we do. And I wrote this song, The River's Coming Around. And when I got to the chorus, I went to visit Kirk and I said, hey, listen to my song that I have, and help me clean up this chorus a little bit. And the two of us, we adjusted the chorus, and I think that one came out really well too. That'll be on the new album.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, now that you're kind of in the process of finishing up the next album, how would you kind of compare the experience from doing Miles as opposed to doing this album? Are there any like noticeable differences, or is it kind of just the same energy kind of carried over to the new project?
Yeah, the same energy carried over. I think in the first album, I know what not to do this time.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Although I think the quality of it came out really well. We use a recording studio called 0 by 1 Sound Studios, and the quality of it came out really well. But I think in creating and recording the songs, I took the long way around the block sometimes. So this time, I'm just going to be a lot more efficient in recording. And this one is, again, a storytelling, but there's some very poetic songs on it as well. And then we cover another Bob Dylan song, since I love Dylan's lyrics, things called Things Have Changed. We're covering that song on there. So I like to include one or two covers on each of the album. I think that's going to be the formula that we use moving forward.
Yeah. Awesome. And do you guys have like a set date in mind already? Like around the time of the springtime, or is it going to be winter?
Yeah,
or
I don't have a set date yet. I'm shooting for somewhere in the middle of March. We have two performances, one at Stockton University and one at a place called the Lizzie Rose Music Room, which we played there this past June. We actually opened up for a much bigger name band, and then they liked us so much, they gave us our own night on April 26th. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The other cool thing that really happened is at Stockton University, I put in our name to open up for Dan Tominski, who is Alison Krauss's guitar player. And everybody in the band says, oh, we'll never get chosen. There's probably thousands of people putting in for that. And we have this really cool demo video, which is like a minute of 8 different songs. And I sent that to them. And I got an email back saying that we were in the top 3, which was really cool. And that the opening act, Dan Tominski himself, will choose who opens for him that night. And he chose us, believe it or not.
Wow.
So, and we opened for him over the summertime. And that was really, really cool. And we'll be back at Stockton, I think it's March 8th or 9th. They have a festival, indoor festival there, and we'll be playing there for 20th anniversary of this festival called Lines on the Pines.
Yeah. Hey there, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a quick minute out to let you know about a couple different ways that you can support the podcast. One of the ways is by clicking that support the podcast button within your streaming platform. That is if you want to be a monthly supporter of the show. You can contribute either 99 cents, $5, or $10 a month. So that's the first way, and that's the more traditional way that we've had now for the last couple years. The other method that we actually just recently introduced is from our good friends over at Ko-fi. Ko-fi is a virtual tip jar. We have set our limit to a minimum of $10, but you can go make one-time, one-off donations. So if you visit ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast, you'll be able to donate. And all these different forms of donation go towards getting new guests every single week, getting potential sponsors on board to do giveaways, and overall just making the show better for you guys. So if you want to do that Ko-fi link, it's ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Otherwise, again, look for that support the podcast button in your streaming platform if you'd like to be a monthly supporter. And I just want to say thank you guys for your contributions. And without further ado, let's get back into the episode. I think that right there goes to show, like, you never know what will happen if you don't try. You know what I mean? Because if you never actually put your name in that whole thing to be picked, you would have never got picked. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it just happens that you did get picked because you took the chance and you went for it, and it ended up paying off. So I think that's a great thing as well. And that kind of leads me into discussing live performing, because I could tell from your page you had a lot of pictures of you performing live, performing on stage, all that sort of thing. So what do you think for you is your favorite part about live performing, and just getting to, you know, see different people out there kind of react to the songs?
Yeah, it's the reaction for sure. And for me, that number one, the music is tight amongst us. But then it's people told me that my forte is my connection with the audience. So smaller venues like the Lizzie Rose holds 70 people only, which is perfect. And I feel like I could really connect with the audience. I introduce the songs. I'm a storyteller. And then the songs are usually very intricate, fingerstyle guitar, add some piano. And Tony has played blues his whole life, so he adds like this blues flavor to everything that we do. And then Susan, she is a second chair in an orchestra. That's how good of a violin player she is. And it wasn't even her first instrument. Her mother was a piano teacher. She played piano first, then went to a guitar as she was a kid, and to mandolin, and finally went to violin. She's just such a brilliant musician. And she had such a unique sound that gives it a little bit of a Americana folky sound as well, mixed with the blues piano and really cool percussion. I just think it's the perfect mix right now.
Yeah. I gotta imagine, because I've never like performed live or anything like that, or performed on stage like that. But I can almost imagine just being able to have the chemistry with your other bandmates is a big thing. Being able to feed off of them, and then like you just said about the more like small, tight knit shows, they're almost more intimate, and you get like a deeper connection with the audience because of that. And I've heard that from a lot of people. Like even in other genres, the smaller shows can have a bigger impact because the person that's there, you know, they're gonna remember that forever. Because they'll be like, oh, it was this night, it was me and 50 people, we saw this band before a lot of people knew about them, you know what I mean? It'd be like a big deal for them. So that's definitely like very cool experiences to have, I can imagine. So yeah, I hope that's the case. I hope that's what people are going home saying. For sure. And I want to dive into, before we get into the last few questions, I want to dive into the book that you wrote and had published and everything. So you are an author as well. So like, how did that whole thing come about? What is the book about, and how did you kind of get led toward, you know, doing that? Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks for bringing that up. I want to write, believe it or not, people think I'm weird, but that's okay. I want to write a series of children's books that deal with children's issues that sometimes us adults have problems talking about or explaining to children.
I have outlines written for my next books coming up. One on divorce, one on bullying, on diversity, and what was my fourth one? I forget the fourth one. So these things are issues in children's lives. Oh, and the other one is loss. It's the loss of a pet. Um, and I want to write books in a real positive, fun way, but that children could understand, have a deeper understanding, and would give some comfort or some advice about these things. So this book that I wrote, it's right here. If you give me your address, I'll send you one. It's called I Have Questions. And it's a story about a brother and a sister who go on a journey to find out if Santa Claus is really real. Because I remember in my life, there was a girl who was older than me, lived across the street, and she was the one that told me that, oh, Santa Claus doesn't give you presents. Your parents do that, you know. And it was heartbreaking for me. I went home. I was so upset. I was mad at my mother for lying to me. This could be a rough time for parents if it's sprung on them or if the parents don't handle it the right way. So this book is about them on this journey, and they try to find out, and they run into 4 different characters along the way, and that give them a little bit of advice as they're trying to get to this cabin here on the top of the mountain where they believe Santa Claus lives. And they eventually get there, and they do find another old man, but he's not Santa Claus, but he explains the whole history of Santa Claus. So I did some research. The whole history of Santa Claus is there, and how this story has developed over the years and how it changed over time from what it originally was to the story that we have today. And it does it in a very inclusive way where it includes the child in the magic of Santa Claus. And now they're kind of like part of this secret club who know about Santa Claus, and they can share this with children who are younger than them, and they can share in the joy of Christmas with children or siblings that are younger than them. And then there's a surprise ending to the story as well as they come back home. So I think it came out really well. I've been getting nothing but positive feedback. We've been advertising them like crazy. The illustrations, as you can see, are just fantastic. I had a woman illustrate it who is a Parsons College School of the Arts graduate, and she teaches cartooning courses and everything. So she's a real top-notch artist who illustrated this book.
Yeah.
So it's really quality. It's hardcover, and I'm really happy how it came out, and I'm looking forward to getting started on the other ones.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, congrats on that alone, because that's incredible. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people, I don't think you could just like wake up one day and be like, I want to write this book and then do it. Like, it takes some actual like skill, thoughts, talent to do it. So I think that's awesome, man.
And research, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the concept too, just of that book alone, is so unique. Just because I've never heard of a story like that. But like you said, it kind of taps into real life like moments too, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to that, even if you are a grown up. You know what I mean? So, because like you said, it came from something in your childhood that kind of triggered you to be like, oh, I can write this book. You know what I mean? And do this and tell this story to other people. And I assume you're gonna sell a lot like right now, like during the Christmas season too. So
yeah. I hope so.
Yeah.
It's off to a good start already.
Yeah.
And the next book, we'll have one coming out too that's called Because I Said So, which I'm just waiting for the illustrations to be done. But the next one is going to be out, Loss. It's about the loss of a pet called Where Is Ralphie Now? But it's a real positive, uplifting book, but it does include death. And I've been doing a lot of research on what psychiatrists say to children as they're counseling them about loss of a parent or a sibling or a grandmother or something. And I've been researching what advice do psychiatrists give to children in counseling sessions when they're experiencing deep loss, and using that advice and those insights in the book to try to help the child through this rough time. I remember I was a kid, and I had lost my pet at about, I think I was like 8 or 9 years old. And yeah, I was heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
I love that dog. I loved it as much as I love one of my family members.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that book will be fun to read, but also will coach the child and give some comfort, and help parents as well.
Yeah. It's crazy that, even just doing that, it's another form of creative expression, and it's another way to give back to people. Like total strangers will read the book and just you'll affect them in a positive way. So again, I commend you for doing that and being able to do that. So that's awesome, and congrats again. So
Thank you so much.
for sure. And these are the last few questions here. These are more life related questions. The first one is, if you could go back 10 years ago and maybe give yourself a piece of advice or not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
Just 10 years ago?
2014.
What was that?
2014.
Let's see. I think, number one, I would have started doing what I'm doing today a little earlier. I feel like because I've just been working and earning money and into my career so much that I put a lot of things like this and my music on hold for a while, and I should have started all this earlier. That's one thing I would tell myself. The other thing I would give advice to my younger self would be to keep moving ahead, even though you face roadblocks. They happen all the time, and not to get discouraged to the point of giving up, and to just keep moving ahead. Any progress is good progress, and so I think it would be those two things, really.
Yeah, for sure. And if we flip that then and we say 10 years from now, where do you think you envision yourself in music, as an author, all that stuff?
Yeah, I think within this decade, really, I really want to do more performance gigs. I've been looking into getting picked up by an agent because right now I'm doing all that agent work myself, So I want to do more performance gigs. I want to be in front of an audience. I'm very comfortable in front of an audience. I've been a school teacher for so long, so I'm used to standing in front of a group of people and talking. And now I just want to do that playing music. And I would love to have a half a dozen books out, and people are really reading my books and benefiting from them. Not just to be popular. Oh, he's a popular author, popular musician. Because even in our concerts are very heartfelt. And in my introductions, I have a song called Hello, Old Friend. And the song was about my uncle, who was in Vietnam, was actually injured in the Tet Offensive. And a black man picked him up and carried him for almost a mile, and where he was able to get medical care. And those two men kept in touch the rest of their lives when they came back from Vietnam. It was a really beautiful story. And so my song, Hello, Old Friend, is about that time and two people who are very different from one another coming together because for some reason their lives collided in some way. And when I tell the story to the audience, it really connects and it gives full meaning to the song too. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And that's how I want to spend the rest of my life.
Yeah. And think about all the more amount of people you'll be able to affect in that time too. It's great to really think about that and see all the people that you're spreading the positivity towards. So that's incredible. And do you have any final words of wisdom today for the listeners?
For listeners who are either musicians or just in general, I think number one is I found in my life that when you've made mistakes, to be able to forgive yourself and move on. Create a strategy to not make those same mistakes. I come from a family of addiction, all kinds of addiction, alcohol, drug abuse, And to be able to move on and move past the hard times is not as easy done as it is said. And to be able to forgive yourself for the mistakes you made, and also have a strategy like, how am I not going to do that again? How can I avoid that? Or maybe I need to speak to someone who's older and wiser than me. Like in my book, it's always meeting someone who had a bit of wisdom that these two children didn't have, that was able to point them in the right direction. And I think it's so important. I have a personal life mentor. His name is Mark McGrath. He's about 10 years older than me. He had 3 daughters that were a little older than mine. And then I had 3 daughters, and I would watch what he did, and we would talk about it and how he raised his children and about everything in life. And I think having a mentor is so important. Just like pick the brains of the people who are older than you, that you admire and who actually did it the right way. And especially if you have struggles, to find that strategy to not repeat that behavior that's so destructive,
Yeah.
And then I think you begin to see life flourish from there, to remove those obstacles, to push through them, and then life gets better. It does.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to find the common ground with others and kind of uplift one another, that's very vital. Well, Daniel, I got to say again, thank you for coming on the show. I had a great time, and again, congrats on everything you got going, the new projects, new books, all that stuff. Keep up the good work, and I'm definitely going to be tapping in with everything you got coming up. So congrats again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for listening today. That was episode 239. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit that support button on your podcast streaming platform if you'd like to send any funds. And feel free to leave us that 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. Also, be sure to tap in every Tuesday on twitch.tv/AnthonyChurch24 for more exclusive in-depth content. But until next week, we'll see you then. Thanks for listening.